The wind blew across the dead zone, cold and sharp like broken glass. The sky above was gray, full of heavy clouds that never cried rain. Only dust and ash filled the air, and the world felt like it had forgotten how to breathe to alien women. Lara and Vexa moved slowly through the fog. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They were sisters, alone and hunted. The ground under them was hard and cracked, metal pieces sticking out like bones from a grave. Lara held Vexa's arm tightly, helping her walk. Vexa was smaller and weaker, her steps shaky. Every few steps she coughed, her breath dry and thin. They had no food left, no water, and no weapons to protect themselves. Just a little more, Lara whispered. Even though she wasn't sure where they were going, all she knew was that they had to keep moving. If they stopped, they would die, either from the cold or from the hunters who chased them. Vexa nodded weakly, but then her foot hit something loose. There was a loud crack, and the ground opened beneath them. Both sisters screamed as they fell into darkness. The fall was short but painful. They landed hard on cold metal. Vexa cried out, holding her leg. Lara crawled to her and checked her. Ankle was twisted, maybe broken. Lara looked around. The place was dark. Rusted walls covered in old human markings. It was a forgotten war trap, left behind after the battles between humans and aliens long ago. A hole above let in a little light, but it was too high to climb. "We're trapped," Vexa whispered, her voice full of fear. Lara's heart pounded. She tried to climb the metal wall, but her hands slipped on the rust. Every move sent small flakes of metal falling like snow. She fell back down, her arms bleeding from the sharp edges. "There's no way out," she said softly. They sat together in silence, holding hands. Vexa's breathing grew slower. Lara could feel her body getting cold. "If I die first," Vexa said with a weak smile. "Don't cry, sister. Don't." "Say that," Lara replied, but tears already filled her eyes. "We're not going to die, not like this, but deep inside." She wasn't sure anymore. Time passed, maybe an hour, maybe more. Their voices faded. Only the wind outside could be heard, whistling through the metal cracks like ghosts singing. Then, suddenly, they heard footsteps, heavy, slow, steady. Lara held her breath and looked up. A shadow moved above the trap. Someone or something was there. She grabbed a piece of metal to defend herself, but her hands were shaking. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let it be a hunter." Then the shadow leaned forward, and a human face looked down at them. It was a man, rough-looking, with a thick beard and tired eyes. He wore an old armor vest and had a pack on his back. He looked surprised, too. "See them, but not angry?" Lara froze, unsure of what to say. Vexa barely moved beside her. "You're alive?" the man asked, his voice deep and calm. Lara nodded slowly. "We fell. The floor broke." The man looked around the edge of the trap, then back at them. "This trap was made for war," he muttered. "Long time ago, to catch aliens. We're not soldiers," Lara said quickly. "We're just trying to survive." The man didn't speak for a moment. His eyes studied them. Then he pulled a rope from his pack and tied one end to a nearby metal beam. He threw the rope down. "Can you climb?" he asked. Lara looked at Vexa's twisted ankle. "Not both of us," she said. "She can't walk." "I'll pull her up," he said. One at a time. Lara was still afraid, but she nodded. She helped Vexa hold onto the rope, and the man began to pull. His arms were strong, but the trap creaked and groaned under the weight. Rust fell in flakes, and the beam bent slightly. Finally, Vexa reached the top. The man helped her out gently, laying her down on a blanket from his bag. Then he threw the rope back down. Lara took a deep breath and climbed. Her legs shook, her fingers burned, but she didn't stop. She reached the top and rolled onto the ground, gasping for air. The man sat beside them, silent for a moment, then he handed Lara a canteen drink. He said, "You need it?" Lara drank and gave some to Vexa. The cold water felt like life itself. "Why did you help us?" Lara asked. The man looked at her with tired eyes. "No one should die alone in a hole," he said simply, in that moment. Lara didn't know if she should trust him, but she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope, and above them. The gray clouds began to clear just a little. Caleb had walked these lands for many years. His boots knew the broken metal roads, the dead air, and the rusted machines buried in the dirt like bones of forgotten beasts. He was a human scavenger, a quiet man who trusted no one and expected nothing from this cold, dying world. But that day, something had changed. The sound had been soft, too. Soft for any machine, a whisper, maybe a cry. His old scanner blinked once. Showing life signs underground, most people would have ignored it. But something inside him said, "Look." So he had looked. And what he saw inside the rusted trap stunned him: two alien women, one barely conscious, the other holding a sharp piece of metal like a broken blade. Aliens, here in the human zones. That wasn't just rare, it was dangerous. Yet Caleb didn't run. He didn't call it in. He didn't raise his weapon like his instincts told him to. Instead, he looked into the eyes of the woman below and saw something strange, something human. He didn't understand it. But he threw down the rope anyway. Now, the two sisters sat near his small camp, hidden in a hollow near the rocks. The fire cracked between them, small and weak, but warm. Vexa was lying down, her leg wrapped in a cloth soaked in healing gel. Lara sat close to her, silent but alert. Caleb stirred a pot of something over the fire. It smelled odd, but food was food in this place. He glanced at them, but didn't say anything for a while. Finally, Lara broke the silence. "You live alone?" "Yes," Caleb said simply. "Always have. Why did you help us?" She asked again. Caleb looked into the fire, then back at her. "I've seen that trap take too many lives. I never saved anyone before." He paused, then added, "But I saw her face, nodding toward Vexa. She reminded me of someone I lost." Lara looked down, not knowing what to say. The silence that followed wasn't cold, it was full of memory, sadness, and something else, something new. Later that night, as Vexa slept, Lara sat beside the fire while Caleb checked the scanner again. He grunted softly. "What is it?" Lara asked. "Hunter drones," he said, his voice quiet, far off, but heading this way. Lara's eyes widened. "They're tracking us." Caleb nodded. "They don't stop, do they?" "No," she whispered. "They want us gone, erased." Caleb looked at her. "Really looked? You military?" She shook her head. "Just survivors. Our planet, Tarnix, was taken. We were hiding in the mines. My sister and I escaped the last sweep, and the others." "Gone," Lara said, her voice cracking. "All gone." Caleb stood up and tossed more fuel into the fire. Sparks flew up like stars. "Trying to escape the sky. Then you'll need to move fast. Before they get close enough to scan your trail, Vexa can't walk far." Lara said, her leg. "I have a cart," Caleb replied. "It's rough, but it moves." Lara looked at him, unsure. "Why are you doing this?" She asked again, softer this time. Caleb didn't answer right away. He knelt by his pack and pulled out an old photo. It was faded, almost colorless. A girl with wide eyes and a smile, standing with a younger Caleb. She died in a trap. He said quietly, "Not like yours, but it doesn't matter. No one pulled her out." Lara stared at the photo, then looked at Caleb, and in that moment, something between them shifted. The fear she held toward this human, this stranger, began to melt. "I'm sorry," she said. Caleb nodded and tucked the photo away. You should get some rest. We move at dawn. The night passed slowly. The wind howled outside the rocks, but inside the little camp, there was peace. Vexa slept without pain. For the first time in days, thanks to the humans' care, Lara sat near her, watching Caleb as he cleaned a broken tool with careful hands. She didn't know if they could trust him forever. But tonight, he wasn't an enemy. He was the reason they were still breathing. As the first light touched the broken land, Caleb pushed a hovercart out of the hidden cave. It looked like it was made from scrap, but it floated smooth and steady. Just above the ground, Vexa was placed gently inside, wrapped in warm cloth. Lara walked beside it, her limp still slowing her steps. But her eyes were clearer now. Caleb scanned the horizon and muttered, "We go east, through the dead fields. It's dangerous, but less watched. Then let's move." Lara said, her voice firm, and so the strange group began their journey, a quiet human scavenger to hunted alien sisters, and a small fire of hope glowing in the ruins of war. The land ahead looked broken, flat, and endless. Sharp metal pieces rose from the dirt like dead trees. The sky above was pale, quiet, with no birds. No drones, no signs of life. It was called the Dead Fields. And for good reason, nothing lasted here for long. Caleb pushed the hovercart slowly. His arms ached, but he didn't stop. Inside the cart, Vexa lay still. Her eyes closed, but breathing steady. Lara walked beside them, one hand always on the cart. Her limp had gotten worse, but she refused to ride. "I can walk," she had said. Firmly, "My sister needs it more." Caleb didn't argue. He respected people who put others first. Even in hell, the path was dangerous. Old war machines lay half-buried in the dirt. Most rusted and dead, but some still had power. Mines, traps. Motion sensors, some of them still blinked red under the dust. Lara stared at them with fear. Caleb with calm eyes. He knew this land. He had walked through it alone many times before. "We step only where I step," Caleb warned. "No guessing." Lara nodded. She followed close, her eyes scanning the ground with every step. Her heart beat fast every time a wire appeared beneath. A rock or a faint click came from somewhere far. Vexa let out a weak cough. Lara stopped, leaned in close. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're going to make it, I promise." Caleb looked back, his face unreadable. He didn't speak, but he paused to give them a moment. Then he pulled a small device from his belt and scanned the air. The beeping sound was slow. "But it was there. They're coming," he said softly. Lara froze. "The bounty hunters." Caleb nodded. "Still far, but gaining ground. We have to move faster." Lara said. Caleb sighed. "Faster means risk, but we'll try." The ground ahead turned rocky and uneven. The hovercart struggled on the slope. Caleb grunted, putting all his strength into pushing it up a small hill. Lara helped, her arms burning, her side aching. The weight of her sister and the rough land tested them both. Finally, they reached the top of the rise. From there, they could see an old human outpost in the distance, broken and covered in vines. It was dead, but it had walls. It could be shelter. Caleb pointed. "That's where we rest next." Lara stared. "Will it hold?" "Long enough," Caleb said. "I've used it before." Suddenly, a sharp buzzing filled the air. Lara looked up. Drones above us. Two black shapes moved fast across the sky, scanning the land. Their red lights flashed. Hunting, searching. Caleb dropped low, pulling the cart beside him. Lara ducked too. Pulling a ragged cloth over Vex's face, they stayed still, barely breathing. The drones passed overhead and vanished into the clouds. Caleb whispered, "They didn't see us." Lara nodded. But fear still trembled in her chest. "We can't stop again until we reach that outpost." Caleb said, "It's the only cover left for miles." "Then let's go." Laura replied, her voice stronger now. Hours passed, step by step. The sun didn't warm them. Emmett only made the metal ground glare brighter. Vexa drifted in and out of sleep. Laura's lips cracked from thirst. Caleb moved like a machine. Steady and silent, finally they reached the outpost. The gates had fallen long ago. Wires dangled like vines. Inside, it smelled of oil, rust, and silence. Caleb kicked open a broken door and stepped in. Checking corners with a sharp eye. Clear, he said. They brought Vexa inside and laid her on an old cot. Laura sank to the floor beside her, her legs shaking. Caleb locked the door and placed scrap metal in front of it for extra cover. Then he started a small fire using hidden fuel. He didn't talk much, but his actions were fast. Careful, practiced. You've done this before, Laura said, watching. Him, too many times, he replied. Alone, mostly. She looked down at her hands, dirty, bleeding. Thank you. For not leaving us. Caleb didn't answer at first. Then he said, I buried enough people in these fields, didn't want to bury more. Later that evening, Caleb checked Vex's leg again. Still bad, he said, but she's strong. And the infection hasn't spread. Laura smiled weakly. She always was the brave one. She's lucky to have you, Caleb said without looking up. Not many people carry others anymore. Laura stared at him. You say that like you know. I do, he whispered. I was left behind once, too. The fire popped softly. Filling the silence as night fell, the three sat in the flickering light. The walls of the outpost groaned in the wind, but inside it felt like a shelter for now. Caleb sat with a weapon in his lap, watching the door. Laura leaned beside her. Sister, her eyes tired but alert, outside, in the shadows. The enemy was getting closer, but for tonight, they were safe, and above them. The stars finally blinked through the clouds, like eyes watching from far away. The night was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. Every crack of the old outpost walls, every gust of wind through the broken roof made Laura flinch. She stayed close to her sister Vexa, who now slept deeply under a patchwork blanket. Her breathing slow but steady. Caleb sat near the door. Cleaning his old plasma rifle, his eyes didn't blink much. Like he was listening to something far away, even when there was nothing but silence. He didn't sleep, not even for a minute. Laura watched him, the way he moved, the way he stayed alert. She could tell he had been like this for years, watching, always waiting, always surviving. What's it like? She asked softly, living alone. Caleb didn't look at her right away, but his voice came steady. You stop expecting help. You stop hoping for kindness. You just survive. That sounds like dying slowly, she whispered. He finally looked at her, his eyes tired but honest. Sometimes it feels that way. Before the sun could rise, Caleb was already moving. He checked the scanner and saw it blinking red. They're close now, he said. 2 hours, maybe less. Laura stood up quickly. We need to go. Caleb shook his head. We can't outrun them, not with Vexa like this. Then what? She asked, her voice rising. We just wait here to die. No, he said. We fight smart. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small silver cube, pressed a button, and a 3D map of the outpost flickered to life in midair. It showed tunnels, doors, walls, and weak points. I used this place before. Caleb explained. We can set traps, force them into close space, narrow paths. Laura stared at the map. You've done this? He nodded. A few times. It's not about winning. It's about surviving long enough to disappear. Together, they worked fast. Caleb rigged an old turret near the entrance, fixed broken wires with parts from his tools. Laura helped set traps. In the hallway, pressure mines, sharp tripwires, even explosive canisters buried under rubble. Caleb handed her a small pulse pistol. Her fingers trembled as she took it. "You ever shoot before?" Lara shook her head. "I never had to." He looked her in the eyes. "Today, you might keep it steady. Don't panic. Shoot only when you have to." She nodded, swallowing hard. Vexa stirred just before dawn, her eyes fluttering open. "Where are we?" she asked weakly, in an old shelter. Lara said gently, brushing her hair back. "You're safe, for now." "I heard something," Vexa whispered, "in my dream. Machines, flying above." "They're not dreams," Lara said, her voice breaking a little. "They're coming, but we'll protect you." Vexa smiled softly. "I believe you." An hour later, the sound came sharp, cold, metal on metal. A hunter drone buzzed over the outpost. Scanning the area, its red lights blinked rapidly. A moment later, it turned sharply and flew back, carrying its signal to others. "They found us," Caleb said. "It begins now." The first explosion shook the door. A blast charge melted part of the entrance, and 3 armored bounty hunters stepped through the smoke, tall, covered in black gear, their weapons ready. The old turret activated and fired instantly. One was thrown back, sparks flying from his chest. The others dodged and returned fire. The turret exploded in flames, but it bought them time. Caleb crouched behind a broken beam and fired. Hitting one in the shoulder, Lara stayed beside a wall, breathing fast. Hands tight around the pistol, her heart raced. But she remembered Caleb's words, "Steady hands. Don't panic. Shoot only when needed." Another explosion rocked the hallway, as a mine went off, throwing a hunter into the wall. He didn't get up. The last one charged inside. Moving fast, too fast, Lara turned and fired. Once, twice, the first missed. The second hit him in the side. He didn't fall, but he staggered. That's when Caleb leaped from the shadows and tackled him. The two crashed into the wall. Caleb slammed the back of his rifle into the hunter's helmet. Again and again, until it cracked open. Then everything went still, only the sound of heavy breathing filled the room. Lara lowered her pistol, her hands shaking hard now. "Is it over?" she whispered. Caleb looked at the bodies, blood and smoke around him. "For now," he said. They both turned to the back room, where Vexa still lay. She had covered her ears during the fight. Tears in her eyes, but unharmed. Lara ran to her and held her close. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're still here." Caleb limped into the room, one arm bleeding, a burn on his side. Lara looked up at him, concern in her eyes. "You're hurt." "I'll live," he said simply. "We all will." That night, they didn't sleep much, but they stayed close, Vexa between them. Fire glowing softly near the corner, Lara rested her head against the wall, eyes wide open. "I never thought a human would fight for me," she said. Caleb leaned against the other wall, watching the stars through a crack in the roof. "I never thought I'd fight for anyone again." He replied. Outside, the bodies of their hunters lay still in the dust. Inside, something fragile and strong was growing between them. Something like trust, something like hope. The morning after the battle was quiet, but not peaceful. Smoke still drifted from the outpost, and the air smelled of burned metal and blood. Caleb stood outside, watching the land stretch far in all directions, broken, silent, endless, inside. Lara helped Vexa sit up slowly. Her sister was stronger today. The fever had faded, but her leg was still wrapped and swollen. Lara smiled gently. "You made it?" Vexa smiled back. "So did you." Caleb stepped back into the shelter, his face calm but tired. "We can't stay here," he said. "More will come. They always do." "Where do we go?" Lara asked, standing up beside her sister. "There's a human relay station 2 days east." Caleb answered, "Abandoned. But it has medbeds, power, even water." Lara looked down at Vexa, then back at Caleb. "Can we make it that far?" Don't have a choice, he said. But we won't rush. We move smart, slow, and silent. They packed what little they had: scraps of food, a bottle of water, 2 pulse weapons with half-charged cells. Caleb pushed the hovercart with Vexa. Inside, wrapped in blankets, her eyes alert, Lara walked beside them, still limping but determined. The dead fields spread out before them like a graveyard of giants, rusted machines, broken ship parts, and bones of metal beasts lay scattered across the land. Some were half-buried. Others looked like they might rise and move again if touched. Every few minutes, Caleb would stop and scan the area. Lara would kneel beside the hovercart, checking on her sister. Vexa never complained, but Lara could see the pain behind her eyes. The wind carried a dry whisper across the land. Like voices that had forgotten what it meant to be alive, they moved. 4 hours under the gray sky, avoiding high ground and open spaces. Caleb led them through narrow paths between metal wrecks, once used as roads for war vehicles, now forgotten by both human and alien worlds at one point. They passed a giant engine half buried in the earth, still humming softly, even after years. Vexa asked in a weak voice, "Why does it still run?" Caleb replied without stopping, "Some machines never forget what they were built for." Lara glanced at him. "And what were we built for?" she asked. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Not this. Not hiding and killing. Not pain." That night, they found shelter in the shadow of a collapsed warship, its frame broken like a fallen bird. The metal walls gave them cover. From wind and drones, Caleb set up a tiny heater powered by a solar cell. It glowed just enough to warm their hands. Lara shared half a ration bar with Vexa and took only a bite for herself. Caleb handed her a water pouch. "Eat more," he said. "You're the one walking." "I'm fine," Lara lied. "You're not," Caleb said quietly. "But I get it. You'd bleed before letting her suffer." Lara looked at him, surprised. "You understand that?" "I had a sister too," he said, voice distant. "Long time ago." Vexa looked up at him. "What happened to her?" Caleb stared at the fire, then said, "She was like you're brave, soft-spoken. She trusted the wrong people." No one spoke after that, but the silence was full of meaning. The next morning, clouds thickened, and the wind turned colder. They walked through fog, shapes moving around them like ghost streakage, machines, old bones of war. Lara kept one hand on the cart, the other on her weapon. Caleb stayed ahead, always watching, always scanning. Then they heard it, a sound, low and distant, but clear. "Engines, drones, they've found the bodies at the outpost," Caleb said. "They're searching again." Lara felt panic rise. "Will they find us?" "Not if we stay low and smart," he said. They moved faster now, through a narrow canyon formed by the wrecks of 2 massive ships, the walls towering over them, blocking the sky. Shadows shifted on the edges. Strange sounds echoed through the hollow space. Suddenly, a noise: clink, clink, like metal on metal. Caleb raised his hand, signaling them to stop. He moved ahead slowly, eyes scanning the ground, a motion mine, half buried under dust, blinking softly. He carefully disarmed it, sweat running down his temple. Then he turned and whispered, "Step, exactly where I stepped." Lara followed closely, her eyes wide. Vexa held her breath in the cart, the wheels floating silently over danger. By evening, they saw the tower in the distance, broken, leaning but standing. "That's the station," Caleb said. "One more push." Lara's legs shook, her mouth dry, but she nodded. "Let's go." They moved faster now, hope pulling them forward. Past the final stretch of broken land, dust rising behind them. But then a shadow crossed the sky. It's a drone flying fast above. It turned sharply, its red scanner light flashing over the ground. "They've spotted us," Caleb shouted. "Run." Lara pushed the cart with all her strength. Caleb fired at the drone. It spun, dodged, but didn't shoot yet. It was calling for backup. The station door was ahead, half open. Just wide enough, they rushed inside. Caleb sealed the door with a metal bar, panting. Laura collapsed beside her sister, holding her tight. Caleb looked out a crack in the wall. "We made it," he said. "But they'll come here next," Laura whispered. "Then we fight again." Caleb looked back at her, a faint smile on his lips. "No," he said, "this time. We vanish before they arrive," and for the first time since it all began, the three of them smiled together. Not as strangers, but as survivors. Inside the broken relay station, the air was still and dry. Old lights flickered weakly from the ceiling, blinking like they were waking from a long sleep. Dust floated in the beams of light, dancing above the metal floor. It felt quiet, but not safe. Caleb checked the power panel on the wall. Most of the systems were dead, but a few still worked. The medbed hummed softly in the corner, glowing with a soft green light. It was old tech, but enough to help. "Put her here," Caleb said, waving Laura over. Laura gently lifted Vexa out of the hover cart and placed her onto the medbed. Her sister looked pale, but she was awake, her eyes glassy but focused. The machine beeped and scanned her body. Red lights sweeping from head to toe. Then it sprayed a healing mist on her wounds and wrapped her leg with a smart bandage. Vexa sighed softly, her eyes closing again. But this time with relief, not pain. "She'll be okay," Caleb said. "She just needs time to rest." Laura looked at him, her voice low. "Do we have that time?" Caleb didn't answer right away. He walked to the window and stared out at the sky. The drone had seen them, and it would report. It was only a matter of time before the hunters came again. They spent the next few hours sealing doors, moving scrap metal, and setting traps. This station had better walls, thicker doors, and more rooms to defend. But it was still just a shell, just another place to hide. "This won't hold forever," Caleb said, placing an explosive near the back entrance. "But we don't need forever, just a few hours." Laura stood near the front hallway, holding her pulse pistol. "What's the plan?" Caleb pointed to the back of the station. "We fight here, then fall back. Each room buys us time. I've set a tunnel escape path through the lower vent system. We'll lead them in, then vanish before the last trap goes off. And what if they're faster?" she asked. Caleb smiled slightly. "Then we fight harder." The sun was setting now, orange and red light pouring through cracks in the walls. Vexa was resting quietly, her face calm for the first time in days. Laura knelt beside her and held her hand. "I wish we had a real home," Laura whispered. "Not just metal and ruins." Vexa opened her eyes slowly. "You are my home," she said softly. "As long as I have you, I'm not afraid." Laura kissed her forehead, tears burning at the edges of her eyes. "Then I'll never leave you." Then the sound came, engines, sharp and angry. Cutting through the wind, Caleb looked up, his face turning cold and focused. "They're here." Outside, 3 black hunter ships dropped from the clouds, landing just outside the station walls. Soldiers stepped out tall, armored, silent. They moved like shadows, smooth and deadly. The first trap went off a flash, mind-blinding the lead soldier. Caleb fired from the top floor. Hitting one in the leg, Laura stayed in the hallway, breathing fast. Holding the trigger tightly, the second trap spike launchers hidden in the wall took down another. But the others kept coming. "Fall back," Caleb shouted. Laura moved quickly, helping Vexa out of the medbed and onto the cart again. Caleb placed charges on the hallway wall, then ran back toward them. He pressed the detonator, and the hallway exploded behind him, flames roaring through the steel. "That'll slow them," he said. They moved into the old supply room near the tunnel vent. Laura and Vexa climbed inside first. Caleb stayed near the entrance, watching, listening. His rifle hummed with low energy, almost out of charge. I'll hold them here for a minute," he said. "Once you hear a second blast, go." Lara froze. "What if you don't come?" "I will," he said. "Just wait for the second blast." Lara wanted to argue, but she didn't. She looked at him one last time, then disappeared into the tunnel with her sister. Caleb stood alone now, breathing slow. The last 3 hunters stepped into the room, scanning, looking. They moved toward the tunnel entrance. He stepped out from the shadows and fired. 1 shot, 2, 3. The last bullet hit, and 1 soldier dropped, but the others fired back. Caleb ducked behind a crate, pulled a wire boom. The floor exploded. Flames and smoke filled the room. The station shook, and Caleb vanished behind the heat. Lara heard the blast, then silence. Her heart stopped, then footsteps. A hand reached through the smoke. Caleb, limping, face covered in ash, bleeding from his side. "You waited," he said, smiling through the pain. "I told you," Lara whispered. Helping him into the tunnel, "We don't leave each other." They crawled through the dark tunnel, all 3 of them, Vexa resting on Lara's back now. Caleb holding the light. The world above burned quietly, but below they moved forward. Slowly, but together. Behind them, the station crumbled into flames. The hunters lost their trail, and the wind carried away the smoke like a memory fading in the sky. And in the shadows beneath the war-torn earth, 3 survivors escaped again, not just as a team, but as something more. The tunnel opened into a wide cave, deep beneath the surface. The air was damp, and the ceiling dripped slowly, like the earth itself was crying softly. The light from Caleb's lamp flickered against the stone walls, casting long shadows. As they stepped forward, they had escaped again. But they were not the same as before. Caleb limped badly, his side wrapped in cloth, soaked in blood. Lara held Vexa on her back, the girl barely awake but still breathing. All 3 of them were bruised, tired, and broken in some way, but they were alive, and in this war-torn galaxy. That alone was a miracle. They moved deeper into the cave until they reached an open chamber, part of an old mining site, long abandoned by humans. Rusted machines and empty crates lay forgotten in the corners, but the space was dry, quiet, safe. For now, it was home. Lara laid Vexa down on a soft pile of blankets and sat beside her, brushing the hair from her face. "You're okay?" she whispered. "We're safe." Caleb collapsed onto a metal crate nearby, wincing with pain. "I've got med spray in the pack," he muttered. "Just give me a minute." Lara looked at him, his face pale, sweat running down his neck. "You need help." "I'll be fine," Caleb said, but his voice was weak. Lara stood up and opened his bag. Pulling out the spray, she knelt beside him and lifted his shirt. His wound was deep, burned black around the edges. "This wasn't from a bullet," she said. "Plasma." "Yeah," Caleb replied. "Caught it during the last rush." Lara cleaned the wound, then sprayed the healing foam. It hissed as it sealed the skin. Caleb tensed, then relaxed. "Breathing easier? You saved us again," Lara whispered. Caleb shook his head slowly. "We saved each other over the next few days." The cave became more than just a place to hide. It became something like a home. They found an old solar panel outside the tunnel and brought it down, giving them just enough power for light and warmth. Lara repaired a water purifier using scrap from the mining gear. Vexa, though weak, used her small hands to fix tiny wires, her fingers steady even with a healing leg. Caleb built a new door from stone and metal, sealing the front to keep out drones and wind. Each day they worked together. Each night they ate together, simple food, warm water, quiet laughter. Something soft was growing between them, something that felt like family. One night, as Vexa slept peacefully, Lara and Caleb sat near the small fire they had built in a metal barrel. The flames danced gently, casting a warm glow across their tired faces. Lara looked at him. You could have left us back at the trap. Caleb didn't answer right away. He stared into the fire, thinking, remembering. I lived alone for too long, he said. Told myself it was safer, easier, but I was just waiting to die quietly. And now? She asked. He looked at her. Really looked. Now. I feel like I'm part of something again. Lara smiled softly. You're not alone anymore. In the weeks that followed, the hunters stopped searching. Or maybe they were called away to other parts of the galaxy. No one came to the cave. And no drones flew overhead, just silence and peace. One morning, Lara woke up and saw Vexa standing at the edge of the cave. Using a crutch Caleb had made from scrap wood, she was looking at the rising sun through the narrow opening above. It's beautiful, Vexa whispered. Do you think this place will stay like this? I hope so, Lara said, walking to her side. We deserve peace. Caleb walked up behind them, placing a warm cloth on Lara's shoulders. If anyone comes, we'll face it together. They stood there for a long time, just watching the sunlight touch the broken rocks, turning the dust into gold. Later, they carved symbols into the wall near the back of the cave. Not words, but marks, 3 shapes, simple and strong. One for Vexa, one for Lara, and one for Caleb. Not a flag, not a warning, just a sign that they had been here, that they had survived, that they had chosen each other. In the galaxy, many stories were told of war, of conquest, of power. But this one was different. This one was about kindness, about trust between enemies, about strangers who became family, 2 alien sisters, and a human man who once walked alone through ruins. Now they built something together, not grand, not perfect, but real, and in the wreckage of old war. They found something stronger than steel. They found each other.